I got a phone call and it killed my audio. Yeah, my brother, my little brother, my little brother called me, and yep, killed my audio. But we'll pick up where we left off. I'm gonna give it until I'll say maybe 45, 30, 30, 40, 30 to 45, 30, 45 here, 30, 40, 30 to 45 here. So we'll wait for it. um, but in case anybody else shows up, we're reading from, we're talking about 2 Kings 8, 1 through 9. And we're talking about a tale of two cities. And why I say a tale of two cities, we have two different representations here about paths that you have a choice of following. And one, we have the woman whose son was brought back to life by Elisha, and he told her to leave her home for 7 years because there was going to be a famine for Israel. She could have easily said, no, I'm going to stay here. I don't believe you. But she left for 7 years and restarted her whole life, basically. She restarted her whole life, basically. So interesting that just happened. But she basically restarted her whole life for 7 years, and then she came back at the end of 7 years. So she listened, right? And when she came back, there was Gehazi, the servant of Elisha at the time, was already talking about her to the king. She was coming to talk to the king to get her house back and her land back. And you see how God works, because she had listened. When she walked in that room, everything was already taken care of for her, right? But in the other city, in this tale of two cities here, we have these kings who would of Israel at the time and Judah at the time, who weren't listening, and they were kind of, yeah, facts. And they weren't listening, and they were kind of just doing their own thing all the time, right? And this is why this is a tale of two cities. On one side, we have the choice of listening, right? Even when it seems like it's going to be something tough, maybe it seems like it's going to be tough, but it really turns out not to really be that tough, right? But it causes us to have to make a change, right? Let's just, in this instance, let's decide to make that change, right? And then we have in the other city, a refusal of change. What's up, Darth Vader? We have a refusal of change, a demonstration of a refusal of change, and what happens when you refuse to change sometimes. It led to the destruction of the cities of Israel and Judah at the time. They were doing things based on their own understanding. They weren't going to God for advice, or really bringing God into it. They were worshiping these other random gods out here. I have no idea. Charlotte Dieters, what's up? I mean, people eat all kinds of things all over the place. I don't eat pork though, not gonna lie. I'm not a pork guy. I don't really like animals that eat trash. That's not me. I'm not that guy. So I don't know if people can eat cats, but I don't eat pork. But this is that tale of two cities that we were just talking about. In one city, the woman obeyed, left for 7 years, restarted her whole life, but then came back after 7 years was up. She listened, got everything that she worked for back easily and effortlessly, right? And that's what happens when you're listening, right? And in the other city, we have the kings that were super prideful, and they would not listen. They were just doing whatever they wanted to based on what they thought was right. And they led to their destruction. So you have a choice here. This is from 2 Kings 8, 1 through 9, you have a choice. You have two different paths you can take. You have a choice. It's your choice, right? Nobody's going to force you to make either one of them, but it's going to be your choice. Facts. But I'm still not eating animals that eat trash. That's not my MO. Because I don't want to eat trash. Because I don't want to eat trash. You feel me? I'm cool on that. But eat whatever you want to. I'm not gonna tell you what to eat. That's not my job, bro. I'm not gonna lie. And I don't want my chat to turn into that either. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. But Acts 16, 16 through 40. 1 second, chat. Mm. So here in Acts 16 through 40, um, we're talking about um, uh, a certain kind of spirit, right? Okay, bud. That's a funny name. But yeah, we're talking about a certain kind of spirit, right? Um, here, and it's the spirit to do. It's a spirit that leads you to a lack of wisdom, pretty much, right? It's a spirit that makes you do things um, strictly based on your own personal gain, right? Uh, I hope your friend's okay. I hope your friend's okay. Um, Once I'm turn off this camera really quickly. Okay, turn it back. Perez, so we're reading from Acts 16 through 40. Well, we've already done our reading this time, and we're reading from the King James Version of the Bible. Um, but now we're discussing the verses for tonight. Um, and Acts 16 through 40, we're referring to lack of judgment, right? Um, we're referring to a lack of judgment when you're willing to do anything to get your way, right? That's really what we're referring to. See these wealthy men or wealthy people here in this story. Uh, they were listening to this lady who would give them advice. She would use the spirit to go into the future and give them advice on how to make money and keep money, right? And then this here, they probably knew of what she was doing, of what she was, right? That they probably shouldn't maybe trust her and what she was partaking in, um, but they were willing to do it for personal gain, right? Um, so this Act 16 to 40, this is really going over being more wise and having better judgment, not just going for something because of what it can do for you, right? Um, this is really a parable for better judgment. In the very beginning of this parable, and I've seen a lot in these parables is that they have two different stories a lot of the time, but in the very beginning of this parable, this is having better judgment, right? Asking for wisdom in these situations before you hop into any of these iffy kind of situations where we might be dealing with iffy kind of people. Ask for wisdom first, right? Ask God for a little bit of wisdom first, for a little bit of discernment first, for you partake in this relationship or some clarity before you hop into this relationship. And this is really what it's trying to get you to see here at the very beginning here. But let's keep on reading into what the rest of this verse for tonight. Um, okay, and the rest of this verse, this goes into Proverbs 17:26. I'm going to read Proverbs 17:26 really quickly. Is it wrong to punish the godly for being good or to flog leaders for being honest? Um, and here, um, Paul and Silas, they did something that was good. They cast the demon spirit out of the lady, but then she ended up losing her power to see into the future. And those wealthy people who were relying on her ability began to lose their money, right? Because they were relying on what she was capable of doing to gain the wealth that they were trying to get. And so they got so angry, they caused the crowd to go after them, to beat them and throw them in jail, right? But they had no reason to throw them into jail. They only threw them in jail because they couldn't keep their money, right? Um, and so it's following up on this judgment, on the judgment of people, right? The wisdom, asking for wisdom and clarity in these situations, right? Because maybe this person who was perceived as helping you would have led you to destruction in the end, right? And God brought and removed the veil from your eyes, right, to show you that this path is going to lead you to destruction, right? Um, and you know, we talked about yesterday about being slow to anger. They weren't slow to anger here. They immediately threw them in jail. They didn't have a proper trial, and for the people of that time, they were Romans. They were Roman people in the Roman land, and they're not allowed. There's a mosquito in here. When'd you get in my house, bud? And the Roman lands are not allowed to throw other Romans in jail without trial, right? So they also unjustly threw them in jail. Um, they end up coming out and then being the people of God they were, even though their jailer was looking for them and it was about to take his own life, and they would have been able to escape, right? This would have been a chance to escape the captivity they were in, being chained to this wall and beaten like this, right? They didn't let the man take his own life. They said, "Hey, we're here. Please don't take your life," right? How many people, when you're given an opportunity to, uh, you know, in this situation, take the shortcut out, right? Um, or aren't going to take that shortcut, you know? How many people aren't going to take the shortcut, you know? And they didn't take this shortcut in this um, situation. They saved that man's life. They also saved that man's family. The man became overcome with the Holy Spirit, and he wanted to be saved because they spared his life. He was spared in the situation, right? And sometimes when you choose and you make the right decision for everybody, then you can help everybody, right? And you don't, and it's not just about you. And this is why I like these. I love reading the Bible in these parables. They have double meanings all the time. They have double meanings all the time. So in the beginning of this parable, we're talking about people having bad judgment, right? They're doing anything to get what they want. And in the second part of the parable, we're talking about people having good judgment and risking their own life for the safety of others, right? Because they could have let the man take his own life and got out of there, but he said, "Stop! I don't want you to do that." And in turn, they ended up saving the man and his whole family, right? Um, and that's just the difference between good judgment and bad judgment. So when you're in situations where your judgment may not be lacking, you may not have the judgment for the situation, just stop and ask for wisdom, ask for some clarity, ask for some discernment, and then proceed forward, right? Before we get into situations that don't serve us nor other people. So I feel like that's a great way to wrap up today's one-year Bible reading and one-year Bible discussion. I'm gonna take something tonight with this. I'm gonna mark this verse for myself to come back to this. To be honest, and if you want to yourself, you can come back to Acts 16 through 40, and Proverbs 17:26 for this out of the King James Version. And when we're in the situations where, you know, we may be lacking in the wisdom and discernment that's required for the situation, let's just stop and ask, right? Because all you got to do is ask. So might as well, right? And if you've never seen my outro before, let's do the outro together. We all got that limitless core, baby. I appreciate you. I might even love you, but I'm for sure glad you woke up today. And thank you for giving me the most valuable thing you could give me, which is your presence. I always appreciate it. It's the most valuable thing you could offer me. You just being here in the chat with me is the most valuable thing you could offer me, and I truly appreciate it. And I'm gonna see you next time. Today's 176, and tomorrow will be 177. I'm about to go to sleep, so I'm gonna see y'all tomorrow afternoon, hopefully way earlier than this. So, but thank you as always for joining me, and peace. My name is Limitless Core on YouTube and Chris in real life. But peace. Y'all have a good one.